If you were to ask a historian, an industrialist, and a physicist to vote on the most influential physical force on planet Earth, I bet they'd all say the same thing. Steam. So how is it steam's the stuff that gets stuff done? Well, it's got to do with water. You see, when water reaches a boil, it starts turning into vapor, steam. And that means increasing in volume 1,600 times. That means that a single ounce of water can grow to fill a 12-gallon container. And if you don't give it the room to grow, well, you get pressure. And if you harness that pressure, you can use it to do work. Like, say, push a 100-ton locomotive. Or make a really great pastry. French call it pâte à choux, or choux paste. When you bake this stuff, it balloons with the steam to several times normal size, and then it sets, leaving a cavernous emptiness inside. This cavernous emptiness may be filled, creating cream puffs, chocolate eclairs. Luckily, the only scary thing about pâte à choux is saying the name. This stuff is easy to make, versatile to use, and delicious to eat. Hey, that sounds kind of like... Most doughs and batters are designed to capture lots and lots of little bitty bubbles. And that's why loaves like this have the kind of texture that they do. It's where they get their very soul. Not so with pâte à choux. No, sir. The stuff of chocolate eclairs and cream puffs is actually designed to capture one or two very, very large bubbles. How can that be? Well, it's part process and parts list. Although the ingredients here are certainly very ordinary. Pâte à choux contains nothing but flour, little butter, some water, some eggs. Of course, there's a little more to it than that. There are no special requirements for the water or the butter or the eggs, as long as they're grade A large. But the flour type matters. Besides being able to create that elastic network we're always talking about, gluten, this flour's got to be able to soak up a lot of liquid. Now, the more protein there is in flour, the thirstier it is. So I'm going to go with bread flour, and I like it for machines, okay? It's always got the highest protein content of anything on the shelf here. Oh, you're also going to need a decent bag of chocolate chips, some vegetable oil, and some of your favorite vanilla pudding mix. All choux start with a combination of water and butter. In this case, a cup of the first and 6 tablespoons of the last. This is also a good time to add seasoning. Now, if this were a savory choux, we'd go with about a teaspoon of salt. But since we're playing the sweet side of the road, we'll just go with a pinch of salt and an entire tablespoon of sugar. Now, let this come to a boil over high heat. And use a pot that's a little bigger than what you think you would need, or later on you'll end up with choux on your shoes. Okay. We also need to weigh out 5 3/4 ounces of flour. Why weigh? Because unlike crystalline products like salt and sugar, flour particles can be compacted, okay? And that means you could end up scooping a cup of flour that weighs 3.5 ounces or 6.5 ounces, and that makes kind of a big difference. Of course, if we're going to talk about scales, it would make sense to talk to someone who sheds them from time to time. Don't worry about that. Somebody will watch it. There you are, W. Funny you're here. Weight has become an issue for me.
Lay off the Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah. How come the price range on these is wider than your mood swings?
Because there are 3 different kinds of food scales. Balance scales, spring scales, and digital scales.
You know, that gives me an idea. Hey, come with me, okay?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Oh, come on. If you've ever stood on a scale in a doctor's office, then you have first-hand knowledge of a balance scale. Now, a balance scale works by sliding a counterweight up and down the arm on the opposite side of the fulcrum from the load until the load is counterbalanced. Quite a load, I might say. Now, since they rely on physics alone, balance scales are perfectly accurate, and they never wear out. But they are notoriously hard to read. They are big, they are clunky, they are expensive.
Put me down.
Okay.
Ah!
most culinary scales are spring-loaded. Now, such scales don't weigh items so much as they measure the pressure required to push the spring to a particular point. The problem is, springs are not accurate across a wide range. They bounce, so they're tough to read and calibrate, and in the end, springs wear out.
I'm going to throw up on you.
Digital scales are different animals because they basically don't have any moving parts, okay? The item to be weighed places downward pressure on a metal plate. This metal plate has an electrical current running through it. Relax, it's a very tiny current. As the pressure changes, it creates minute fluctuations in this electrical current, okay? The scale's circuitry interprets that and displays it as weight. Not only are these scales amazingly accurate and reliable, hey, we're not done here.
This model, which switches easily from imperial to metric, can handle up to about 11 pounds.
See, 11 pounds. That's
5.75 kilos.
Yeah, that's what I got.
The large readout updates twice a second, and the on button is also the tear button.
Oh, tear button. Very, very important. Basically, it allows you to zero out the scale, thus canceling the weight of any containers or ingredients. Very useful.
And it's also flat, so it can store easily in a kitchen drawer.
Indeed it is. You know, I think I'm going to go weigh.
I'd settle for go away.
I heard that. Ah, 5 3/4 ounces of flour exactly. Our buttery water is all a boil, so I'm gonna grab a spatula and dump the flour in all at once. There'll be a little bit of foaming. Now stir vigorously until it forms a paste. There. Now once it starts to come together, you're gonna reduce the heat to low. You keep working the mixture, basically kneading it, so that whatever extra water the flour doesn't soak up will evaporate. The drier this is, the more eggs it will hold later. When the paste is no longer sticky to the touch and you've got a bit of residue on the bottom of the pan, you know you're done. Kill the heat, and I like to move this straight to the work bowl of my standing mixer. Yeah, we've still got eggs to add, but if we were to put them in now, they would just scramble. So in about 5 minutes or so, this will be ready. Just whenever you can stick your finger in it without going, ah, that's when. Now, pot de choux basically means cabbage paste in French, because some folks say when it bakes, pot de choux looks kind of, sort of, maybe like little cabbages. I think that the origin of the word is probably really pot de chaude, or hot paste. That would make a lot more sense. You see, the fact that it cooks before it bakes is what explains the wonderful things that pot de choux can do. Now, if a batter is going to work up a good head of steam, it's got to contain a lot of water, right? Okay, well, let's say that we made up just a real loose batter, like a popover batter or crepe batter. When we went to form cream puffs, this is what would happen. A big mess. That's not going to happen to our batter because we started with water, but we brought that water to a boil, okay, which is important because when you dump flour into boiling water, something strange and wonderful happens. It gelatinizes, okay? Within just a few minutes, all of the flour granules soak up a huge amount of water. Within a couple of minutes, in fact, they've drunk their fill. That's why we stir the paste over low heat so the rest of the water can evaporate out. Now, by doing it this way, we literally create a paste that has tricked the flour into carrying all of the water for us. As a result, we end up with a batter that can be molded and is nice and thick, but is still absolutely loaded full of water. A pretty great trick. I hold in my hands 4 whole eggs and 2 egg whites, which just so happens to add up to about a cup of eggs. Now, we want to work as many of these into the paste as the paste can hold, but we're going to have to go slowly. Why add eggs at all? Well, for one thing, we need the emulsifying power of the egg yolk to help hold the butter and the waterlogged flour together. Yeah, same way it holds the lemon juice and oil together in mayonnaise. Thank you. Also, if our pieces are going to have any structural integrity, there's going to have to be some protein, okay? That's why we're using more whites than yolks, because whites is where the protein is. Oh, also, albumin contains drying agents. That means that it allows moisture to leave, but doesn't let it back in. And that is going to keep the final pieces from getting moist and falling apart. I've still got a little egg left over here, but judging by looks, I'd say this is done. If you're not sure, just pull the beater, dig in for a little bit of batter, and then let it fall. See that? See the way it tears away and leaves a V shape? That is exactly what you want to see. You can pipe this out right now, or you could cover it and leave it on the counter for a couple of hours. Whereas if you're going to shape it into either cream puffs or eclairs, you're going to need some kind of piping bag. Now that's a traditional piping bag I can agree with. This one, I don't like so much. Okay, it's fabric, it's hard to clean, it's a unitasker, which is never very smart. In other words, if you use one of these, you're a go sit in the corner. This, however, is a multitasker. This is a 1-gallon plastic zip top bag, good for 1,000 different uses in the kitchen. Here we have a piping tip set. Okay, these are available at almost any good kitchen store. Comes in 3 pieces. Here's how we bring them together. Now that is a piping bag I can love. To load it, just fold back the plastic like this, take a spatula, and start loading. Oh, you did turn the oven to 375, didn't you? Behold, an average, everyday aluminum baking sheet. Now, since this contains a lot of egg, and egg contains protein, and protein sticks to things like this, I never pipe this directly onto this. I always pipe onto parchment. Not that kind of parchment. This kind of parchment. Heat-resistant paper impregnated with silicone. Very unsticky and molecularly inert stuff. It does, however, have a tendency to slide around, which is going to make piping difficult. So I'm just going to put 4 little dollops of our dough at 4 corners of the pan. And that ought to keep things a little more stable. There. Now this is not like drawing out a bead of caulk. Okay, we're making little lazy S's here. It's going to help them to rise more evenly. The other thing that'll help evenness is speed. Believe it or not, the faster you do this, the less likely you are to have inconsistencies in shape and size. And that's good, because you want the eclairs, cream puffs, whatever you're doing, to be all the same size when they come out and done at the same time. There. Ooh. If you mess one up, don't worry. Just scoop it up with a cake spatula and put it back in the bag later on. And also don't worry about the little tips that are going to be left sticking out. Now, professional pastry folks, they have this little snappy finish they do at the end so that they'll be perfectly round. I can't do that. What I do, though, is when I get finished with a rack of these, there, I come back with a little bit of warm water. Just put a little on the end of my finger and just kind of pat down each one of those little points. They look little now, but believe it or not, in the oven, they will grow to massive proportions. There. Straight to the oven. Slide your creations into the middle of the oven and increase the temperature to 425. That'll provide a strong source of bottom heat through the first half of the cooking, and that is crucial for a good rise. Now, there's a lot of room in here, and we could probably fit, I don't know, 3 racks. But if we did that, we'd have to constantly open the door and rotate them around. It's just not a good idea. I like to pipe a pan and bake a pan one at a time. Oh, and set your timer for 15 minutes. Perhaps you prefer cream puffs. No problem, same dough, just a different pan. You never want to put them on the same pan with eclairs because it's different size and shape means a different cooking time. Instead of a lazy S, we'll make little concentric circles. There. Now you're going to end up with the same little dimple at the top. Don't worry, you can just flatten that down with a wet finger. Yeah. Ah, they're brown, they're beautiful. But if you pull them now, they'll fall flat later. They've got too much moisture in them still. So turn the heat down to 350 and let them dry out for 10 minutes. If you skip this step, well, don't skip this step. As soon as they are just cool enough to handle, I like to pierce the side or end with a paring knife or a skewer to let any extra moisture out. And you've got to do this while they are warm because if that moisture has a chance to condense, you're going to have to warm them again to drive it out. There. Now, once they cool to room temperature, you can bag tag them and store them on your counter for up to a week or freeze them for up to a month. Now, let's have a look inside, shall we? Just slice this down the side. There you go. Empty as a cave. You know what? It'd be a real shame not to fill that with something. Traditionally, eclairs are filled with pastry cream, a kind of stirred custard that's stabilized with starch. But vanilla pudding from a box will do just fine, especially if you're short on time or like me, lazy. You want it to be a little on the thick side though, so only use 3/4 of the liquid that the instructions call for, okay? Now, to deliver this inside, we turn again to a piping bag. This time it's outfitted with a small star tip. Make a smaller hole, and the serrations actually help punch through. Now squeeze gently until pudding starts to come out the hole, like that. Now, as we do this, be a very good time to contemplate chocolate coating. Simply melt a cup of chocolate chips with a teaspoon of vegetable oil in a metal bowl suspended over a pan of simmering water, being very careful not to get any water in the chocolate lest it seize. The resulting coating will set up hard, but because of the added fat, not too hard. Once your eclairs have chilled, and while your coating is still hot, it's time to frost. Now, there are two ways to do this, essentially. You can take your eclair, just dip it in the coating. Yum. You get nice total coverage that way. Or you can go Jackson Pollock on the whole racket one time. I have to admit, this is a lot more fun, but you don't get quite the same amount of coating, so it's kind of up to you. And of course, because you're doing this on a rack, you can save that chocolate and reuse it later. Important point. There is a correct way to eat a chocolate eclair. Okay? Everybody grab one. Now you want to turn it so that the piped end is in your first bite. That way the pressure of your bite doesn't jettison cream all over your shirt. Oh, I bet you thought I forgot about those cream puffs, huh? Ice cream sandwiches, anyone? Always popular. Of course, if we had left the sugar out of that batch of paste, we could have filled the resulting puffs with chicken salad. Always popular, too. Of course, I think the very best thing about pot of choux is that you don't actually have to bake it. And let's say you had a wide pot with about an inch worth of 375-degree vegetable oil. And let's say you had a baking pan with a cooling rack that would fit on top of it, a spider or some other strainer, a sifter full of confectioner sugar, and, of course, a frying thermometer. Then you'd be able to make the best thing that ever came out of a carnival, funnel cake.
Well, we hope that we've given you the desire and the confidence to try your hand at some of our favorite steamed eats, pot au choux. Despite the fussy French name, it is as much fun to make as it is to eat, and I assure you, it is fun to eat. See you next time on Good Eats.
Most doughs and batters are designed...